Hey there, my name's Curtis Lucas, and you're watching Empire Building. In this video, I'm going to be reacting to an interview with Merrick Okamoto, the CEO of Marathon Digital. Earlier this week, Merrick Okamoto joined Benzinga on their YouTube channel for an interview that lasted approximately 20 minutes. I'm going to be highlighting a few portions of that interview. If you're interested in watching the entire thing, the link will be down in the description. And while you're down there, if you're interested in getting 2 free stocks, sign up for Webull and deposit $100. And if you're Canadian, go ahead and click on the Wealthsimple link and deposit $100 and make your first trade, and you'll get $10 for free. Now let's get on with the video.
And before we dive into it, if you could just give us an overview of the company. And I know you guys put out a press release today that gave an update on some of the machines that you guys received, Bitcoin mining production. But if you could just do the quick overview on the company, what the importance of the update today is, that would be excellent.
Certainly. So Marathon is one of the original NASDAQ listed companies that is a pure Bitcoin mining company. There's a lot of companies that are joining this industry now. They have a lot of catching up to do with Marathon. We purchased 103,000 S19 miners from Bitmain. I believe it's the largest order that they've ever had in terms of dollars and number of units. When all those are installed after they've been delivered from Bitmain, we'll have over 10 exahash of hashing power. That today, where the network is today on the blockchain network, would be almost 7% of the blockchain network. So clearly one of the largest Bitcoin mining companies. What we also did, which was quite unique, is we formed a partnership with a utility company, and we placed all of our miners adjacent to their power facility. So they leased us 40 acres. We surrounded that with a fence. We built new substation, transformer switches, and we are placing all of our miners adjacent to that facility. So that makes us, we're not buying power from a utility company or from the grid. The rate on that power was 2.8 cents per kilowatt, which I believe is one of the lowest in the Bitcoin mining industry in North America as well as China. And that allows us to produce Bitcoin that are trading today near $60,000. We make our coins for about 3,500 bucks. We also announced a couple days ago that we're launching our own mining pool in North America, which I believe that's of national security interest to secure the blockchain, as well as the Bitcoins that we mine will be virgin Bitcoins, and they will be OFAC compliant with the US Treasury. We don't know of anyone that has done that yet. And we think that will create demand for our coins that we create from institutions who prefer to only buy coins that are following the rules and regulations of the U.S. Treasury.
So I have to say that it's great to see Merrick Okamoto out there doing interviews. I'd like to see a lot more of this as time goes on. That was a great summary of Marathon Digital and everything that they've been working on and everything they've been working towards. It really is remarkable how quickly this company has launched itself to the front of the pack. They're not quite there yet, but they will be there by the end of this year. And then in the first quarter of 2022, they're going to rip the face off this market. Merrick Okamoto describes how at today's difficulty, if all of those miners were installed, it would account for approximately 8 or 7% of the overall hash rate on the Bitcoin network. That is remarkable. Now, obviously, by that point, the difficulty rate would have risen enough that that percentage of the overall network will have declined somewhat. However, I think that that difficulty rate, the rise in the difficulty rate, is not going to be as significant as people are expecting. It's going to be very difficult. And I've been looking into this a little bit more, and I'm going to do an in-depth video on this. But with the chip shortage that the entire world is facing, this is going to have a significant impact on the ability of ASIC manufacturers to actually produce enough machines that's going to actually increase the hash rate substantially enough. I mean, we could see it double, maybe even triple, but that would really only push Marathon's cost basis to produce one Bitcoin up to maybe 6, 8, 9,000 at the most, per Bitcoin. If you consider the possibility that Bitcoin could be trading well over $100,000 at some point this year or even early next year, this is an incredibly profitable business. And that early mover advantage to build up such a substantial amount of hash rate is going to put them in a league of their own. The next thing he mentions is something I've discussed a few times on this channel. The new mining pool that they announced is actually going to go live. I believe it's this June. And with that new pool, they're going to be following compliance regulations to ensure that the coins that they mine are not derived from fees that may have been paid by wallets connected with criminal activity and terrorism and that sort of thing. There's been a lot of claim that new institutions, or at least maybe many, maybe all, who knows, that some of these institutions that want to buy Bitcoin are very concerned that they could somehow have that Bitcoin that they acquire being traced back to some kind of criminal organization. And for them, they feel that there's a risk associated with that. And it's this point of view that's actually leading to this concept that virgin coins might carry with them a premium over just a normal Bitcoin. Now, I gotta say that I have mixed feelings about this. As a shareholder, I am glad that they are taking steps to make sure that they are in compliance with the laws of the United States. But as a Bitcoin believer who believes in the fundamental nature of this technology and what it's trying to accomplish, its censorship resistance and decentralized nature, could be put at risk. We'll get into that a little bit more later on, but for now, as a shareholder, I do think this is a good thing. And if it's true that institutions are interested, there's a demand to possibly pay a premium for virgin coin, then who are we to argue with that? The reality is the new entries, the institutions that are trying to enter into the space, they're trying to, I guess, come to terms with the regulatory environment that they're coming from into this new world. They're not really sure what to do or what to make of some of the realities that exist within Bitcoin. And they are doing their best to try to maybe impart their will. The fact of the matter is, Bitcoin being open sourced, they do have the ability, like all of us, to sort of impart their own viewpoint. If the community at large or as a whole agrees with them, then it could lead to a shift in the fundamental nature of Bitcoin.
So search Marathon Digital Investor Relations. You'll find the investor deck. And one of the reasons why I like it is because it starts right up front, and it talks about basically revenue growth from $500,000 a month to pretty much $100 million a month. Can you talk about what goes into that? Is it dependent on when the machines get delivered? Is it dependent on the energy deals? Can you just take us through? I mean, that's crazy explosive revenue growth.
Sure.
So the details there are helpful.
That's a great question, and thank you. That is all derived from the decision after the halving in May of 2020. Our board decided that we were going to become very aggressive, and we remembered what happened in 2017 when Bitcoin went from $100 to $19,000. The machine prices from Bitmain exploded. They went from $500 a machine to almost $9,000 a machine. We expected if Bitcoin had a large rally, that would happen again. The miners would become very difficult to purchase and the prices would go up. So we raised all the capital we could, bought all the miners that Bitmain would sell us. And now as those are deployed, that's the reason for the increase in revenue. As those machines are shipped every month from Bitmain in their Malaysia location, we deploy those miners at our facility in Hardin, Montana. And every day we add miners, and every day the number of Bitcoin we produce is going up. And it's just great timing. We really hit it right at the perfect time to become aggressive and buy all those machines. Secondly, the low cost that we pay for our power lets us be, we believe, the low cost provider in North America for creating Bitcoin. So it was really timing. That's what's going to generate the revenue. As the machines arrive, we deploy them and we create more Bitcoin every day.
So that's what we like to hear. This is what we've been talking about on this channel all along, being the early mover. And this is why I've said many times that the dilution that we suffered through with Marathon back when the price was down in the even single digit or low double digits was definitely worth it, because the fact that they were so aggressive allowed them to leapfrog everybody else and place the largest order that Bitmain had ever received in its history, $150 million to buy 75,000 miners in a single order. That takes guts, and I think it's going to pay off big time.
And the next question that I had was to dive into competitive advantages, right? How you guys compare to other miners. I know that you've already covered part of that with you talked about the energy deal and also all the machines that you guys have ordered. Is there anything else on the competitive advantage side of things that we should dig into?
Sure. Really, I think just being public, being a NASDAQ listed company allowed us to have access to raise capital. Many other miners are either A, they're private, or B, they were small bulletin board or microcap companies and did not have access to the capital markets like we did. We've been able to raise, if we wanted to raise $500 million today, it would be no problem. So the interest in owning a NASDAQ listed company that is probably north of that institutional money and gives us the ability to raise capital should we need it. Right now, we have 215 million, 216 million in cash. We also purchased from our treasury $150 million in Bitcoin. When the last decline happened from 42,000 and went down to 28,000, we deployed $150 million, bought 4,800 Bitcoin. Those today, just 3 months later, are worth almost $300 million. So that gives us about $515 million of liquidity on our balance sheet, and we have no debt.
And is the plan to sit on all that Bitcoin, or is it to slowly sell it off, or what does that look like?
We don't plan to sell it. We do plan to hold it and give our investors essentially a NASDAQ listed, almost like an ETF. We don't know the future. If there came a time that we needed some capital for something that our board thought was strategic, and we needed that capital, we could raise some capital from that, or we could raise capital in the capital markets. But our plan right now is to hold all of our Bitcoin that we own currently and all of the Bitcoin that we generate as virgin coins.
So that part right there is important. Like Hut 8, Marathon wants to become the pure Bitcoin play. So if they sell their Bitcoin, then they're going to lose that exposure. If people are buying their stock to gain exposure to Bitcoin, then what good does it do them to buy it if they don't hold any Bitcoin on their balance sheet? The more Bitcoin that they hold, the more attractive the company is going to become, especially during a Bitcoin bull market. Now, obviously, in a bear market, that's going to have the opposite effect. But if you're trying to look at investing in this in the sense of a long-term play, and maybe Bitcoin going through multiple cycles, and then instead of selling their Bitcoin, just maybe raising capital at the height of the market and then using that capital to continue their operations without having to sell the coin itself. This is kind of a big deal and something that wasn't really possible the last time round. These companies during the last bull market actually hadn't even started to mine. They had only plans to begin. They had started making orders. These were tiny companies at the time. So things are very different this time around. So it's going to be very difficult for even us to be able to know what to expect. It's also going to change the economics of Bitcoin itself if miners like this stop selling their Bitcoin. Where's the selling pressure going to come from now? But this is an important concept because it's going to lead into what he says later.
We've done two styles of data centers. The first one we did, and I think many people did, is when you were looking for power, the way to find it was to lease an old building, 100, 150 years old, 100,000 square feet, that used to manufacture something in the United States that now that manufacturing base moved offshore. So you have these large empty buildings, cheap power located nearby. And we did that at first. So we leased a building, we put fans in it, we brought in all the electrical and transformers and switches inside the building. Quite shocking to me, I'll admit to you, we turned them on and that it looked like it was snowing in the room. And what it was doing is it was peeling the paint off the ceiling and the
Oh my
walls
God.
in this little building. And those were going in our miners. So we figured there had to be a better way. We've been at this a long time. We've hired excellent people that do our hosting for us. And so now we build our special purpose containers. These containers allow us to control an environment inside of a box that's literally the size of a shipping container. Now we only control the environment in the box instead of trying to control the environment in a giant old building. So what does it sound like? When you walk in that room, it's very, very loud. These machines scream at a super high RPM. You have to wear headgear to protect your ears. We try to keep these rooms at a pretty constant 50 to 60 degrees. That's where the miners like to operate. And that's done by using the fans and the ventilation system to move airflow in and out to keep at those temperatures. One of the reasons we chose Hardin, Montana, if you just think about it, it's pretty far north in the United States. So it has a very cool climate. And that's been excellent. Our miners love it. We're generally, I see a dashboard, I can look at it right now and see how we're operating. And we're at 99.99% of our miners are running. And it's because they love that environment that we built.
Okay, great. And then can we talk about the pool a little bit?
Sure.
So you guys put out a press release, I believe it was maybe a week ago or a couple weeks ago, talking about the Bitcoin mining pool. Can you dig into that? What advantages that presents for you, et cetera?
We believe that, if you just look at the landscape of the mining pools, most of them in this that miners are pointing to are all domiciled in China. And if you look at what a Bitcoin mining operation does, we validate transactions on the blockchain, and many corporations now are moving their analog paper type systems and they're making them digital and moving them on a blockchain. As they move those onto a blockchain, they need validation for transactions to be proven and validated, and we get paid to do that with our miners. If you try to go it alone and just put all your miners on the network by yourself, you could win some validations and there might be days that you did not. So everybody comes together generally in mining operations and they pool together and choose a mining pool. All the mining pools, for the most part, the largest, say 5, are based in China. And it's our belief there's 2 issues with that. One is there's geopolitical risk. Having all of our machines pointed to China in a situation where we can't control the internet there, what the government may do there, we would like to onshore that. And we've talked to many other large enterprise miners, and they want to do the same. They want to point their miners to a pool in the United States. The second issue, and what I think is unique about our pool, is if you look at the rules, their OFAC rules from the U.S. Treasury says you should not do business with these parties. These are known sex traffickers. These are, maybe Hezbollah or terrorist organizations. And we can see, we take an API from the Treasury that shows us the wallets, who the end recipient is, and says it's illegal for you in the U.S. to do business with these parties. So we're a U.S. NASDAQ listed company. We want to follow the law. So we're creating a pool that looks at the process that we're going to mine a transaction, and we look at the end result, who the recipient wallet is. If it's on the OFAC restricted list, we skip it. So it doesn't mean that we're censoring that transaction. Someone else will mine it, just we won't. Marathon will not mine something that the recipient wallet is on a list that the Treasury says it's illegal for us to do business with. We believe that once we start creating these coins at the beginning of next month, and we're going to put them in a separate holding, separate blockchain for them to be held in, there will be institutions that want to buy that coin that is virgin OFAC compliant to U.S. laws versus buying a regular Bitcoin. I think it'll trade at a premium over time. And there are institutions that just, their bylaws won't allow them to invest in something, and they're waiting to use some of their U.S. Treasury assets until something like this comes along. And if you read or just Google it, numerous articles have been written and number of interviews in the last 2 or 3 weeks saying institutions that have not yet joined and purchased Bitcoin, That's the reason why they're waiting for this clean OFAC type coin to become available, and we're going to provide it to them.
So there it is again. OFAC compliant coin. Supposedly, there are some institutions out there that don't feel comfortable owning anything but that. Think of it like artisanal, free-range, gluten-free, organic Bitcoin. Maybe it'll even come in special packaging. Honestly, as you can probably tell, I do think this is ridiculous. However, I understand why some organizations might feel it to be necessary. I don't think it's going to last forever, but here's where it gets interesting. If you are one of those organizations, how much of a premium are you willing to pay for it? Because we just heard Merrick say that they don't have any intention to sell any of the Bitcoin that they're mining. Yet they're acquiring this OFAC compliant coin that they are willing to sell to some of these institutions. When are they going to do that? Are they ready to do it right away? Is Bitcoin got to reach a certain price before they're willing to sell it? Are these organizations going to wait that long? Are they going to let Bitcoin rise another 50 or 100% before they actually purchase this coin? How much of this coin is Mara and other miners willing to even part with? Because as I said before, if they sell their coin, it reduces the appeal of the pure Bitcoin play. If they don't have any Bitcoin on their balance sheet, who's going to want to buy it? So now what you've created is a secondary market for these special compliant coins. And if you want to talk scarcity, well, that's a whole lot more scarce than any other Bitcoin. And so if there's a perceived value over and above, like a premium that they're willing to pay, I can imagine that being a pretty hefty premium, because the supply of those coins is going to be extremely low. I mean, the fact of the matter is, we can do some quick math here. If we've got 900 coins are mined every single day, times 365, that's 328,500 Bitcoin can be mined every single year. That's newly minted coin. And that's only between now and the halving. After the halving, that is going to get cut in half. But if we assume that perhaps of the entire network, maybe 10% of the entire network hash rate, maybe even go, hey, let's go crazy. Let's assume the United States and the other North American miners all go into a pool and start generating this virgin coin, this compliant coin. How much of this can even be produced in a year? 65,700 Bitcoin. That's the most of this coin that I imagine could even be produced in a year. To put that into perspective, Michael Saylor's company, MicroStrategy, has over, I believe, 90,000 Bitcoin currently on their balance sheet. That means for all the other institutions out there who want to actually purchase coin, but they're restricting themselves to only this special, certified, free-range, artisanal Bitcoin, they are limited to only 65,000 per year, assuming that those North American mining pools can actually acquire 20% of the entire hash rate in Bitcoin within the next year. That only gives them about 2 more years or so until the next halving. And it only gets harder after that. So this is why, while I do believe this story is real, I think these companies, these institutions are going to very quickly realize that it's not a very practical strategy, but it's definitely something worth keeping a very close look at, because it's going to have a significant monetary impact on the value proposition of these mining companies, especially the ones in North America.
I'm getting a lot of questions in the chat talking about the energy relationship. I know you mentioned it's not a utility that you're partnering with, but it seems like it's a company that actually produces energy. Could you circle back to that for just a second and clarify how exactly that relationship works, and how that allows you to have as a competitive advantage cheaper energy than competitors.
Yes. So that facility can produce 100 megawatts of power. The company that owns that power plant is a private company called Beowulf. And what we did is the term for what we're called is we use all the power that facility will create. That makes us what's called a base load user. So the power the facility creates doesn't go through transmission lines and out to a utility network and share that power and then have to come back to us. It comes from the power plant literally into the new substation we built and the transformers we purchased, and the power goes right into our specially built trailers to power our miners. But we made a decision to be just, if you just look at the landscape of the mining pools, so we're creating a pool.
It seems like it's a company that actually produces energy.
It'll trade at a premium. Has been written and a number of interviews in the last 2 or 3 weeks saying institutions that have not yet joined and purchased Bitcoin, that's the reason why. They're waiting for this clean OFAC type coin to become available, and we're going to provide it to them.
Excellent. I'm getting a lot of questions in the chat talking about the energy relationship. I know you mentioned it's not a utility that you're partnering with, but it seems like it's a company that actually produces energy. Could you circle back to that for just a second and clarify how exactly that relationship works, and how that allows you to have as a competitive advantage cheaper energy than competitors?
Yes. So that facility can produce 100 megawatts of power. The company that owns that power plant is a private company called Beowulf. And what we did is the term for what we're called is we use all the power that facility will create. That makes us what's called a base load user. So the power the facility creates doesn't go through transmission lines and out to a utility network and share that power and then have to come back to us. It comes from the power plant literally into the new substation we built and the transformers we purchased, and the power goes right into our specially built trailers to power our miners. We've looked at many other facilities throughout the country, and most of them you buy from a local utility. That local utility then buys from the grid, and that grid buys from a large consortium. So there are a number of parties in your power pricing, and you can't control, some of those change their power rates every year. And we developed a very long-term contract with Beowulf that locked in those energy prices, and we don't have the risk of some of the things you saw in Texas where they're buying from a grid and that grid went down and there was an interruption of power. We're buying directly from the power plant, same ground where our machines are located. So I think that gives us a real unique advantage over some of the other enterprise Bitcoin miners.
So I was really happy to hear Merrick elaborate on the agreement that they have in place with Beowulf Energy. I really do think that having an agreement like that with an energy provider that is on the exact same site as the miners are is quite advantageous. The odds of any of that infrastructure going down for any reason drops substantially, especially when you witness what recently happened in Texas. This site is in Montana, but as we know, it receives winter weather. There are a number of factors that could impact that electrical infrastructure. And it's worth it for the energy provider because they know that the demand for that power will be consistent. So the facility itself can run at its maximum efficiency continuously. They don't have to worry about ramping up and ramping down.
But can you talk to us about timeline and what's next? Timeline either for machine delivery, what should we be paying attention to as investors out of the company, et cetera?
We just published, as you saw today, and we included in that a timeline showing we're very transparent, shows when all of our miners are supposed to be shipped. You can track that timeline. We're going to publish that report every month around the first of each new month and tell you how many we installed in the previous month, how many coins we made, what our current hash rate is, and what we expect to be delivered in the next month. Those things are out of our control. If there were logistics problems or shipping problems from Malaysia to us, then we'll have to deal with that. So far, Bitmain has honored every single thing that they said they would do. They've not only done it, they've delivered them early. And I'll give an example. The March shipment was supposed to be shipped by March 31. They shipped us half the units on March 15th and the balance of the units on March 21st. So they've been a great partner for us. They make a premium product. The S19 Pro and the S19J are amazing miners. They produce the highest number of hash rate per the amount of electricity that's required to turn those machines on of any other machine. So we see every day somebody puts out a press release, hey, I've got 10,000 machines. Well, do you have 10,000 machines producing 40 terahash, or do you have 10,000 machines producing 110 terahash like the ones we bought? So we really care about buying state-of-the-art equipment. And I think what you'll see from us in the future as our cash flow continues to rise, we will always be adding miners to our fleet and continuing to grow and try to maintain our dominant position as being the largest miner in North America.
So that was it. They saved the best for last. Miners are continuing to arrive every single month, and we're going to be able to look forward to monthly updates as far as progress on site and how many Bitcoin they've mined every single month. I like that he pointed out that Marathon actually exclusively utilizes the most efficient miner that is available on the market. It literally has the hash power 3 times more than many of the other miners that are available out there. And to go along with that, the highest efficiency, which further leads to additional profits and margin. Sometimes with this company, it can be almost a little bit nerve-wracking, the fact that it's not as fast as it's growing. It almost feels like it's still not growing fast enough. We just want those miners to get here and get plugged in. But this is a patient man's game. And really, it's not even that patient. If you can find anywhere else in the market where there's a company that can grow its revenues from $500,000 a month to $100 million a month in 1 year, if there's any other example out there of a company that can do that, please let me know. This reality, I swear, has not sunk in yet, and it is definitely not reflected in the price. That's all for this one. Now let's get back to empire building.